Part 1. Prelude to prosecution. Following his presidency, Donald Trump's political trajectory remained as contentious as ever. As the nation navigated the aftermath of his tenure, Georgia emerged as a focal point in a new legal confrontation that would challenge the boundaries of accountability and the rule of law. The lead-up to Trump's prosecution in Georgia can be traced back to his post-election actions and his engagement in the state's political arena. After his loss in the 2020 presidential election, Trump's refusal to acknowledge the results and his repeated claims of extensive voter irregularities sowed uncertainty among a considerable portion of the population. Georgia, a traditionally Republican stronghold that flipped Democratic in the election, became emblematic of these assertions. Amid accusations of anomalies, Georgia's electoral procedures faced rigorous examination, including multiple recounts and legal disputes. Trump's vocal insistence on reevaluating the election outcome put him at odds not only with the state's election officials, but also with members of his own party who had certified the election as valid. As the legal avenues for contesting the election results diminished, Trump's rhetoric intensified, reaching a pinnacle in a contentious phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State, during which he urged a review of the vote count. This call raised queries about potential interference in the election process and laid the groundwork for the legal challenges that would ensue. Within this context, the choice to prosecute Trump in Georgia generated both eagerness and apprehension. Supporters of the former president perceived the action as politically motivated, an endeavor to weaken his influence and undermine his legacy. Critics argued that irrespective of one's status, adherence to the law was paramount, and any alleged infractions required thorough investigation. The prelude to the prosecution was characterized by intense debates about the balance between holding a former president accountable and upholding democratic norms crucial for a peaceful transition of power. Legal scholars offered their perspectives on the feasibility of the charges and the potential consequences for future presidential conduct. The case also revived discussions on the constraints of executive authority and the degree to which legal measures could be pursued against a sitting or former president. Intertwined with these discussions was the role of media in shaping public perception. Media outlets spanning the ideological spectrum covered unfolding events, often accentuating existing divisions. Social media platforms, too, became arenas for competing narratives, making it progressively challenging to discern unbiased truth from partisan interpretations. In this prologue to the prosecution, Georgia stood as a crossroads of legal, political, and ethical quandaries. The nation observed as a former president's actions, statements, and their potential implications collided in a legal arena that would assess the resilience of democratic foundations. As the case progressed, it remained to be witnessed whether accountability could be pursued without exacerbating the schisms that had come to define American politics. Part 2. The allegations. The legal case against Donald Trump in Georgia revolved around a series of allegations stemming from his actions during and after the 2020 presidential election. The charges encompassed a range of potential legal violations, sparking a complex dialogue that showcased contrasting perspectives from both Trump's critics and his supporters. The core allegations centered on Trump's alleged efforts to influence the outcome of the election through various means, including his public statements, private communications, and interactions with state officials. Critics argued that these actions raised concerns about the integrity of the election process and the sanctity of the democratic system. Trump's detractors pointed to his repeated claims of widespread voter fraud as a significant factor that contributed to the charges. They contended that these claims, despite being debunked by numerous investigations and court rulings, created a narrative of distrust and could potentially incite violence among his supporters. This, they argued, amounted to a breach of public trust and warranted legal scrutiny. Supporters of Trump, on the other hand, voiced concerns about the potential chilling effect of prosecuting a former president for expressing his opinions and exercising his rights to free speech. They emphasized that Trump's claims about the election were shared by a substantial portion of the population, and his actions were driven by a desire to ensure the accuracy and fairness of the electoral process. Some argued that pursuing legal action against Trump might set a precedent that could stifle open political discourse. A significant aspect of the allegations was Trump's phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State, where he purportedly pressured the official to find additional votes. Critics saw this as a potential instance of election interference and an abuse of power. They argued that the call violated the principles of a fair and transparent electoral process, suggesting that it undermined the democratic foundations of the nation. Trump's supporters, however, contended that the call was within the scope of his responsibilities as a leader who was concerned about election integrity. They pointed to the fact that political figures frequently engage in discussions with officials to address their concerns, and that Trump's intentions were aimed at ensuring the proper execution of the electoral process. As the legal proceedings progressed, anticipation grew around the possibility of Trump's mug shot being taken on August 24, 2023. This image, a symbol of accountability, held contrasting significance for different factions. Trump's detractors saw it as a moment of reckoning, a tangible representation of the legal system's ability to hold even the most powerful accountable. They believed it could serve as a reminder that no one is above the law. Supporters of Trump, however, viewed the prospect of his mug shot with skepticism. They argued that it could be sensationalized and manipulated for political purposes, further dividing an already polarized nation. Some suggested that the focus on a mug shot detracted from the underlying legal issues, potentially fueling a narrative of political persecution. In this chapter of the documentary, the allegations against Donald Trump offered a multifaceted view of the intersection between legal accountability, political discourse, and public perception. The contrasting perspectives from Trump's critics and supporters demonstrated the complexities of navigating a legal landscape while maintaining the principles that underpin the American democratic experiment. Part 3. Legal Maneuvers. The legal battle surrounding Donald Trump's prosecution in Georgia unfolded as a dynamic interplay of legal strategies, sparking spirited debates among Trump's detractors and supporters alike. This chapter delves into the intricate web of legal maneuvers that marked this consequential case. From the onset of the proceedings, Trump's defense team embarked on a multifaceted approach. They argued that Trump's statements regarding the 2020 election were protected by the First Amendment, asserting his right to express his opinions, even if they were factually disputed. They contended that prosecuting Trump for his claims could set a concerning precedent that could curtail political discourse. Trump's detractors, however, questioned whether the First Amendment could shield statements that allegedly incited mistrust in the electoral process and contributed to the events of January 6, 2021, at the U.S. Capitol. They emphasized the potential consequences of unchecked rhetoric and whether such actions fell within the bounds of protected speech. Another legal avenue explored was the claim of executive privilege. Trump's legal team contended that his discussions with state officials, including the now famous phone call, were protected by executive privilege. They argued that these conversations were part of his official duties as a former president and should be shielded from legal scrutiny. Critics countered that executive privilege was typically reserved for matters of national security and policy and should not extend to discussions related to potential misconduct or allegations of election interference. They argued that invoking executive privilege in this context could undermine the principle of transparency and hinder the pursuit of justice. The legal proceedings also saw Trump's defense team challenging the admissibility of evidence, questioning the credibility of witnesses, and requesting the dismissal of charges on various legal grounds. They sought to undermine the prosecution's case by highlighting procedural irregularities and potential biases among those involved. Trump's detractors, however, emphasized the need for a comprehensive examination of the evidence and a fair evaluation of witness testimonies. They argued that dismissing charges prematurely or discrediting witnesses could undermine the pursuit of truth and justice in the case. As the trial progressed, negotiations and legal maneuvers often took center stage. Trump's legal team explored potential plea deals, while also seeking to sway public opinion through media campaigns and public statements. These efforts were met with both skepticism and cautious optimism from different sides of the political spectrum. The chapter also marked a turning point, as the court's decisions on various legal motions set the tone for the trial's trajectory. These decisions prompted further discussions about the fairness of the legal process and the potential implications for future cases involving public figures. In this legal tug-of-war, the diverse viewpoints of Trump's critics and supporters underscored the complexities of balancing legal accountability with individual rights and democratic principles. The legal maneuvers showcased in this chapter epitomize the heart of the American justice system, wherein a courtroom becomes a stage for advocating competing ideals while navigating a complex web of laws, precedents, and ethical considerations.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
Part 4. Public and Media Reaction. The legal proceedings against Donald Trump in Georgia ignited a firestorm of public and media reaction that highlighted the deep divisions within American society. This chapter delves into the contrasting responses from Trump's detractors and supporters, as well as the role of media in shaping the narrative surrounding the case. For Trump's detractors, the prosecution represented a long-awaited step toward holding a powerful figure accountable for his actions. They saw it as an essential pursuit of justice, emphasizing that no individual, regardless of their status, should be immune to legal scrutiny. Many believed that the case would set a precedent for future leaders, reinforcing the notion that the rule of law supersedes political influence. Critics of Trump rallied behind the prosecution as a demonstration of the strength of democratic institutions, applauding the justice system for taking on the responsibility of investigating allegations of potential wrongdoing. They viewed the trial as an opportunity to restore faith in the nation's commitment to upholding the principles of fairness and equality before the law. On the other side, Trump's supporters viewed the prosecution as a politically motivated attempt to silence a prominent voice. They believed that the case was part of a broader effort to undermine Trump's influence and tarnish his legacy. Many saw the legal proceedings as an extension of the contentious partisan battles that had marked his presidency, arguing that they underscored the divisions within the country. Supporters questioned the timing and motivations behind the prosecution, suggesting that it might have been expedited for political gains. They argued that the trial could further exacerbate the already polarized climate, making it difficult to foster constructive dialogue and bridge the gap between different political camps. Media coverage played a pivotal role in shaping public perception of the trial. News outlets with divergent ideologies presented contrasting narratives that resonated with their respective audiences. This media polarization deepened the divisions among citizens, making it challenging to find common ground on even the most basic facts surrounding the case. For Trump's detractors, media coverage often reinforced their belief in the necessity of accountability. They appreciated outlets that meticulously dissected the legal arguments and examined the evidence against Trump, validating their concerns about potential misconduct. They saw the media's role as a crucial check on power, ensuring that no individual, irrespective of their stature, could evade public scrutiny. Supporters of Trump, however, criticized media coverage as biased and sensationalized. They argued that some outlets portrayed the prosecution as a foregone conclusion, presuming guilt before all the evidence had been presented. This perceived bias, they contended, undermined the presumption of innocence and further eroded trust in media institutions. As the trial unfolded, public and media reaction underscored the stark polarization that characterized the American landscape. The chapter highlighted the profound impact of the case on public sentiment, emphasizing the role of media in reinforcing existing beliefs and the challenges of fostering a shared understanding of the events surrounding the prosecution. Part 5. The trial begins. The anticipation surrounding the impending trial of Donald Trump in Georgia has fueled a range of expectations and perspectives, from both his detractors and supporters. As the trial's commencement draws nearer, this chapter delves into the diverse reactions and viewpoints that have emerged in anticipation of the legal proceedings. For Trump's detractors, the upcoming trial represents a crucial step towards addressing concerns about accountability and transparency. Many view the courtroom as a venue where evidence can be presented and scrutinized, potentially shedding light on the veracity of the allegations against Trump. These individuals see the trial as an opportunity to uphold democratic principles and ensure that all individuals, regardless of their status, are subject to the rule of law. Critics of Trump are hopeful that the trial will provide an avenue to thoroughly examine the claims and assertions that have dominated political discourse. They anticipate that the trial will offer a platform for evidence and testimonies to be objectively evaluated, allowing for a deeper understanding of the events in question. This expectation aligns with their desire to see democratic norms and institutions upheld. Supporters of Trump, meanwhile, express concerns about the potential fairness and impartiality of the trial. They worry that the charged political climate surrounding the case might influence the proceedings and undermine the pursuit of justice. These individuals are eager to ensure that the trial is conducted with utmost transparency and adherence to due process, reflecting their commitment to a fair legal process. Some Trump supporters are wary of any potential manipulation of the trial for political gains. They fear that certain actors might exploit the legal proceedings to further their own agendas, potentially resulting in an outcome that is perceived as unjust. These concerns stem from a desire to safeguard the integrity of the legal system and its role in upholding democratic values. As the trial's start date approaches, both sides are closely monitoring developments. They are attentive to how evidence will be presented, the dynamics of witness testimonies, and the overall conduct of the legal teams involved. These expectations underscore the significance of the trial in the broader context of American democracy, revealing the contrasting viewpoints that will shape public discourse as the proceedings unfold. Part 6. Conclusion and Potential Outcomes. As the trial against Donald Trump in Georgia nears its conclusion, the nation awaits the potential outcomes with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. The case, which has illuminated the intricate interplay of law, politics, and public sentiment, carries the potential to shape America's future landscape in significant ways. This concluding chapter examines the possible ramifications of a scenario where Trump faces jail time, delving into how it could impact the nation and its already polarized society. Legal accountability and democratic principles. For Trump's detractors, the possibility of legal consequences for the former president symbolizes the triumph of accountability and the principle that no one, regardless of their status, is above the law. If found guilty and incarcerated, it could demonstrate that democratic institutions are capable of holding even the highest office accountable for actions that violate legal norms. This outcome could bolster public trust in the legal system's ability to pursue justice irrespective of political influence. Impact on political landscape. The potential imprisonment of a former president would have far-reaching implications for American politics. It could reshape the dynamics of political discourse, possibly prompting a reevaluation of the boundaries of acceptable behavior for public officials. The case could also serve as a precedent for future actions, influencing how politicians engage with the electoral process and address allegations of wrongdoing. Further division and polarization. However, the outcome could also exacerbate existing divisions within the country. Trump's significant popularity among his supporters could lead to claims of political persecution and deepen the sense of division between his base and his detractors. The belief that he was unfairly targeted might sow seeds of distrust in the legal system, media, and institutions involved in the case. Impact on the Republican Party. The potential imprisonment of a former president who remains a prominent figure within the Republican Party could also shape the party's trajectory. Trump's supporters might rally around him, viewing his conviction as a rallying cry against perceived bias. Conversely, it could offer space for a recalibration within the party as members contemplate the long-term implications of aligning with a controversial figure. Media and public perception. Media coverage and public discourse would play a significant role in shaping how this outcome is perceived. News outlets with diverse ideological leanings would likely present contrasting narratives, reinforcing the existing divides. Trump's supporters might perceive media coverage as biased and manipulative, while his detractors could see it as a necessary reckoning with his actions. Economic and global impact. The outcome could also have economic and global implications. America's reputation on the global stage might be affected, and its ability to address pressing national and international challenges could be influenced by the perceptions of its leadership's integrity. In conclusion, the potential scenario of Donald Trump facing jail time encapsulates the complex interplay between legal accountability, political polarization, and the future trajectory of American democracy. While it holds the promise of upholding democratic principles and reinforcing the importance of accountability, it also raises concerns about further deepening societal divisions. The nation stands at a critical juncture, where the outcome of this trial could resonate for years to come, shaping not only the legacy of a former president, but also the broader narrative of American politics and society. Part 7. Civil War. The notion of whether putting Donald Trump in jail could lead to a civil war is a complex and controversial topic, one that has been debated by experts, analysts, and scholars with varying perspectives. While it's important to approach such discussions with nuance, it's worthwhile to explore the arguments on both sides. Potential for civil unrest. Some experts and commentators have raised concerns that attempting to prosecute and incarcerate a former president as prominent and polarizing as Donald Trump could fuel divisions within the country. They argue that a subset of Trump's fervent supporters may perceive legal actions against him as politically motivated and unjust, potentially leading to civil unrest or heightened tensions. The deeply entrenched polarization in American society and the fervent loyalty that some of Trump's supporters exhibit could exacerbate existing divisions. Consequences of polarization. The United States is no stranger to periods of deep polarization, and experts point to historical instances where political divisions have led to conflict. They argue that the intense political climate combined with misinformation and disinformation campaigns could contribute to an environment in which even perceived injustices against a political figure could escalate into larger-scale unrest. Institutional impact. The potential aftermath of legal action against Trump could impact faith in institutions such as the legal system, law enforcement, and the judiciary. If his supporters believe that legal proceedings are motivated by political bias, it could erode trust in these institutions and have long-term implications for how citizens perceive the rule of law. Counterarguments and context. However, it's important to note that this perspective is not universally held. Others argue that the United States democratic institutions are robust enough to handle legal proceedings without escalating into a civil war. They point out that the majority of citizens are committed to peaceful coexistence and democratic norms, and that the actions of a minority might not necessarily lead to widespread conflict. Furthermore, some experts argue that not holding a former president accountable for potential misconduct could set a precedent that undermines the rule of law and democratic accountability. They contend that a strong legal system that treats all individuals equally, regardless of their political stature, is essential for maintaining the integrity of democratic governance. In summary, while some experts have raised concerns about the potential for civil unrest or heightened divisions, if legal actions are taken against Donald Trump, the extent to which this could lead to a civil war is a topic of ongoing debate. The situation is multifaceted and influenced by a myriad of variables, including the actions of political leaders, the behavior of citizens, media coverage, and more. As history has shown, predicting such complex outcomes is challenging, and it's crucial to consider a range of perspectives while acknowledging the inherent uncertainties involved.